It's time to have a serious conversation about Creighton. We did not
Sorry,
intend.
wait, Greg. Sorry. I'm logging into my basketball stock market here. I got to sell some of my Creighton shares.
I we did not intend to do a recap for this. I make a whole sheet of all the notable games that I think we should be doing previews and recaps for, and then as crazy results come in, sometimes we adjust that. Last night, Creighton was a 13-point favorite in a semi away game. That's what it was called, according to Ken Palm. This was really like it was a neutral site in Nevada near Las Vegas. So how neutral was it? I don't know. They had like half the arena with the Battle for Atlantis blue lights and then half the arena with the red lights. Didn't matter in the end because Creighton, as 13-point favorites, got ran out of the gym against UNLV, who beats them by 15 in the end. This was our preseason national championship pick. You and I were both individually all in on Creighton, and we don't always agree on stuff like that. So I feel like for you and I to come in saying we loved this team, I don't think there's a team that has been more disappointing to us to start the year than the Blue Jays.
Yeah, it's really disappointing. And I think the most disappointing part about it is when we stake our claim to teams, I think we stake claims to teams that can win in different ways. Now obviously Creighton coming into the year, and honestly, in some of these games early in the season, they just look like an offensive juggernaut. And you have Shireman playing well, you have Trey Alexander playing well, you got everyone really playing well, even down to the Isaac Charles and the Kalkbrenner, of course. But this team can't win a game if they have a cold shooting night, and that is alarming because cold shooting nights happen, and cold shooting nights especially happen in the NCAA tournament game, in NCAA tournament games. So if you're not able to overcome cold shooting nights, that is detrimental, I think, to your hopes of hanging banners and going to the Final Four and things like that. And you look back at the losses that Creighton has had this year, and it's easy to pick like why they lost the basketball game. Well, in the UNLV game, I think it was a little bit more they got out toughed in the game, which was very surprising to see in my eyes. But Creighton might have a little bit of Duke in them with the softness thing. But Trey Alexander, you just get absolutely nothing from him, and Trey Alexander is way too good of a player to do that. And they weren't able to overcome that, and they also weren't able to get stops on the other end. Shout out to Dean Thomas Jr. I was not familiar with his game or familiar with him in general. He's like a reclass, I think, 18-year-old freshman point guard. We know how those usually work. He was cooking in this game, and he looks like he's going to be a player moving forward. But I, I am, if we're putting it on our scale, like of how we're maybe scared of Creighton between like green, orange, red, I think I might be in the red category for this team.
Yeah, you have to be. It's full on sound the alarms right now. So here's my read on Creighton in general. I'm going to compare them to Kentucky, but in a much more negative way than I talk about Kentucky with this. I did the Kentucky preview last night for their game against North Carolina with Riley Davis last night, and I remarked that Kentucky is a team where it doesn't really matter what their opponent does. Like obviously you want to see their opponent play well and try to limit them, but more often than not, Kentucky decides which Kentucky shows up. Either they're really, really good because Kentucky is really, really good, or they're really, really bad because Kentucky is really, really bad. There's like not much of an in between. I think that Creighton is the same right now, with the caveat being that, like, I think more naturally, Creighton leans on the bad side of the equation and they just shoot themselves to being really good sporadically. And if it's a game that you're playing Creighton and they make 23s, then yeah, nobody's beating them because they shoot a bunch of threes and they make them and they have great shooters and all of that's true. But like with Kentucky, there's like a baseline of talent of like we have like 9 guys that are all potential NBA guys or all potential starters on this team that are really, really good, and you just need 3 of them to show up any given night, and it makes sense. With Creighton, it's like they have Trey Alexander, who now has become one of the most inconsistent players in the country. I mean, he was 1 for 10 to start this game. In their previous loss to Colorado State, he finished 1 for 16. That's horrendous. I've never seen a quote unquote star have multiple games where he makes 1 shot from the field like that.
Mhm.
Um, but outside of that, man, like They don't have players. Like Mason Millis has looked all right this season. He's certainly more playable, but he's not a guy you want to be your fourth best player. Steven Ashworth was on the bench for Farabello last night. Like Ashworth has 4 points in his last 2 games combined. And there were people who tried to tell us that Ashworth was an upgrade for this team, for Ryan Nemhard. It's been a disaster. Like this team has 3 players that are quality basketball players. And of those 3, Trey Alexander, any given night, can go 1 for 15. I don't know how you win that. Calc, to me, has stagnated. There's no, like, advancement of him. He's, if anything, he's the exact same guy he was last year, which, don't get me wrong, is a great player. But I think he floats through games if his guards aren't doing things for him. And this comes down to, like, how good is Baylor Shireman going to be any given night? And Baylor's been fantastic this season, in my opinion, thus far. I think he's been about as good as Baylor Shireman can be. And it still hasn't been enough when he doesn't have the other surrounding parts clicking with him.
Yeah, I think that we might have a discussion or need to have one of a mistake we made. Um, I think we made a mistake. Do you think we made a mistake saying this team doesn't need Kaluma?
Oh, man.
And I'm not even talking about offensively. I'm talking about defensively and rebounding wise, because this UNLV team, I think they were even on the glass with them, but they had a plus 12-point advantage in the paint with Kalkbrenner in the paint. But like, it's not all Kalk. And that's the thing too, that I feel the opposite of you on this. I don't even think Kalk flows through games necessarily. I just think it's tough for him to get into the game because of how they play this season. It is all threes, jumpers, threes. That's really all it is. And in a lot of games, they could literally throw it to Kalk, I think, on a lot of possessions, and they really don't, because they just want to get jumpers up or let the guards go or let Trey Alexander and Baylor Shireman go. But I think that at least the discussion might have to start that, I think the loss of Nebhard, I don't think is up for debate. I think that they downgraded that position. Now with the Kaluma point, maybe they miss him more than they thought they would. Like maybe it wasn't, addition by subtraction.
They definitely do. It just hurts for me to say that out loud because I still don't believe Kaluma is a great basketball player, maybe even a good basketball player. Like it's still unproven if he's the best bad basketball player or the worst good basketball. I have no idea. This is like the downside of the transfer portal to me, right? Like there are transfer situations where you look back at the end of it, you say that was such a good decision. That was such a good fit. We finally saw this player in this setting the way that we needed to, that was good for his game, good for his health, all of that. Kaluma is the worst possible example I can think of in the season. Like we're taking a guy who just wanted to go be a first option, who now is a first option on a pretty mediocre team because he's not good enough to be a first option. When
Right.
in reality, like he has everything this Creighton team needs. If he would have just been willing to be a third or fourth option, and he wasn't. And now it hurts everybody. In the end, Creighton gets significantly worse. Kansas State needs a better player than Kaluma anyway for what they want from him. It's one of those ones that's just going to piss me off for years. Like, why did this kid leave a program that was one play away from a Final Four? But yeah, you're right. Like he's obviously better than Mason Miller, and he does a
Yeah.
lot of different things than Mason Miller. So
Another thing I wanted to get your opinion on. Usually when you see a team like Creighton, I'm trying to think of like past previous teams that kind of play the same style, and nothing's coming to my head right now, but this is my thought process on it. A team that plays the way they do, they should never truly be out of games, but it seems like when they get down, they can't battle back. Like they can't get that stop. They can't win that 4-minute segment. Like this was a game that they were down 12 at half. And I think that everyone was like, okay, that's fine. This Creighton team, they can get over this. They got the offensive ability to get over this hump and get back into this game. But can they get stops? You break down the second half into 4-minute games, just like coaches do all the time. They were getting a couple buckets now and then, but they weren't able to get stops on the other end. Or they were going droughts for 4 minutes with like one field goal made. Meanwhile, UNLV is scoring on 3 straight possessions. So it's like, on paper, this team should be so much better at like actually coming back. But it seems like when they're down in games, it's kind of like I don't know. I don't want to use like the toughness word or something like that. I don't know what the word would be for it for. Is like they don't just have like the wherewithal to like battle back and get buckets, but also get stops to get back into basketball games. And obviously, 10 games into the season right now. But you look at their 2 losses. Colorado State, they got their ass whooped the whole game. They never got back into it. UNLV, honestly, this game was really never in doubt for them. They were up 12 at half, and they maintained that through the most of the second half.
You know what it is? They have a toughness imposter.
There's an imposter amongst them.
There's a toughness imposter. So I'm workshopping this on the fly. There are 2 guys I would define as toughness imposters in the country. Do you have any guesses to who my first toughness imposter would be? Somebody
Can
maybe
you give me the conference of the first one?
ACC. Little bit soft. A toughness imposter.
Team or player?
Player.
Oh, it's got to be a Duke player. It's got to be Flip.
Tyrese Proctor.
Okay.
Toughness imposter. Trey Alexander.
Ooh.
T ending in That's what I'm going for. Like Trey Alexander. Tyrese Proctor. Toughness imposter. That's what I'm going with.
Tyson Walker?
Oh no! Oh no!
That kills me.
Oh no! I did not realize that.
Jab counter.
That wasn't even a jab. Oh no. This is just a theory I'm working with on the fly. Oh no. TBD on your boy, but God, yeah. So Trey is just not what I thought he was. He's just not what I thought he was. I thought this kid was like a first team All-American, National Player of the Year contender. And when he's good, the numbers back that up. His first 4 games of the season were insane numbers. I mean, rebounding, assists, scoring 20 a game every single game. Since then, he's been horrible. Like horrible. Like Trey Alexander cannot have a single-digit scoring game on this team, let alone doing it twice in their 2 losses where he literally had 3 combined made shots from the floor. I don't get it. And again, I think if you watched it last night, confidence was an issue. Like he was missing all the shots early. He started 1 for 5, I believe, and he just got tentative. Like he was waiting for Baylor Shireman to go save the day, and that's never going to happen.
Right. And he wasn't getting stops on the other end. Like you
And
look at his 2 losses, like Isaiah Stevens, obviously one of the great point guards in the country, took his lunch money. Yeah. He let some 18-year-old reclass point guard, and obviously he's talented. I mentioned that I think I pronounced it correct. It's Dean Thomas Jr. He's talented as hell. Don't get me wrong, but like, come on, bro. You can't just let another point guard come in there and take your lunch money while you're not getting stops on him on one end, and you're not making shots on the other end. Like that's, that goes back to the imposter tough guy thing. Tyrese Proctor, if he starts out 1 for 10. He's probably going to finish about 2 for 10. Tyson Walker doesn't fit in this category. He starts 1 for 5. He gives you 15 straight in the second half.
Well, but I think the key note for the toughness imposters is that if they start slow, they defer. That's what I feel like. If we've seen Proctor miss his shots, I feel like we've seen him kind of like, okay, Jeremy Roach, go do it. Okay, Flip, go do it. And Alexander for sure. It's like Ashworth saved the day. Farabello saved the day. I'm going to stand here. Like he just got less involved. In the few games you've had that have been close, it's been AJ Hoggard making the plays late. I don't know. We'll leave it up for review. How about that? We'll send it to the committee for review.
All right, sounds good.
Okay.
I'll be there.
Well, we didn't talk much about UNLV, but just one note on them. They were one of the clear, visible first teams that was a recipient of some positivity from the ruling this week, where transfers that were up in the air on if they were eligible or not are suddenly eligible. Keelan Boone came in. He hit 2 threes in this game, had 10 points. This was his first game of the season. I don't get that at all. I don't get what's going on in our sport, but I think it's wild that like guys are just all of a sudden playing that weren't on this team.
Greg, I tried to tell you, man, for the Dub Club, first of all, everyone subscribe. 2, we're taking overs on all 2-week transfers. We're going to have Linsanity type runs for 2 weeks and maybe never hear from these guys again because they're going to be ineligible. But that is like crazy to me. Imagine like if it was like a first team All-American level player. Like imagine Zach Edey doesn't play for the first 2 weeks and then you fall in that 2-week span where you got to play him. And Arizona right now is like, oh, great. He's eligible. Now we got to play Zach Edey.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
2 weeks from now in Big Ten play, Ohio State won't have to deal with them. Like this is a crazy concept to me.
It's really crazy. It was wild to watch because I'm just like, this guy's not on the team. It's like this guy wasn't part of my prep, and here he is chipping in like a critical 10 points, banging in threes when Creighton was trying to make a run. So, all right, UNLV. I still don't think they're a good basketball team. I was impressed by their performance, by their toughness, by their energy, all that. I think the truth is that they smelled blood from a Creighton team that tucked their tail between their legs and stood there shivering for 40 minutes. I'm really unimpressed with this Creighton team. Let's just wrap it on this. They were our national title pick to start the year. If you had to bet right now, where does Creighton's season end? Where are you betting?
I don't mean to overreact and swing on this, but this has the look of a team that loses the first weekend.
Yeah, I think like second round. I don't see a Sweet 16 for this team.
Can I give us a little bit of credit though? We had our doubts and saw this coming. I know Creighton fans listen to this. I really apologize, but if you want to go back to maybe where the season took a turn, it wasn't Colorado State. It wasn't any of the games so far. It was the Elite Eight rings.
Yeah, it really was.
You really should have seen this coming.
You're right. It really was. That was bad. They got Alabama next. I think we're going to have a preview up on the channel. I'm supposed to do that with, I believe, Lucas Harkins later at some point today or tomorrow. So come back, Creighton. You can hear us decide if you have any chance against an Alabama team that I also don't really love. Could be a get right spot. We'll see. Hang in there.